We actually have the bills in front of us, so if there are any very technical questions, we should be able to help you out. The biggest change that I see is how short sales are going to play out from now on here in Nevada. At this point, the law is indicating that a sale in lieu of foreclosure will be included with regards to the statute of limitations of 6 months after the sale concludes for the lender to be able to file a deficiency action against someone for the amount of money that they didn't recover as a result of that short sale. Prior to this law coming into effect, a lender would have up to 6 years on a breach of contract claim in order to pursue. I think that deterred a lot of homeowners from doing a short sale, and in fact, a lot of times when we would consult on short sales, we would point that out as being a real detriment to doing a short sale if you couldn't get a deficiency waiver. Changing the law to only limiting that time frame to 6 months is really no different than if a foreclosure happens, because you have that 6-month eligibility for deficiency pursued after a foreclosure sale. I think what inspired the change in the law is the fact that the legislature didn't want people just doing a foreclosure to limit that exposure time, when a short sale really is a better solution for all the parties if you can reach an agreement. So in that sense, if you can't get, I mean, a deficiency waiver is ideal, but if you can't get a deficiency waiver now, at least you know that your liability window for when they can pursue you is still going to be 6 months, the same as it would be in a foreclosure.
So the legislation, the new legislation, doesn't specifically address short sale. It doesn't use that language, but we feel like the language in the statute is all-encompassing and would include short sale. Can you elaborate on that a little?
Yeah, when I read it, it says sale in lieu of foreclosure sale. It means a sale of real property pursuant to an agreement between a person who owes the obligation to the secured, and that person is going to take less than the full value owed on the note in exchange for that sale. They of course give us an example and say that the term includes, without limitation, a deed in lieu of foreclosure. I think they use this broad language because with an FHA, if you do a short sale, FHA refers to it as a pre-foreclosure sale. I think the terminology within the real estate world is short sale for any and all, regardless of what type of loan it is. Why they didn't enumerate that specifically is anyone's guess, but I think there's a very strong argument that that was the intent of the legislators. So we are of the opinion that the sale in lieu of foreclosure sale is designed to cover those short sale transactions.
And they say including without limitation, like you noted. So
absolutely. The other important thing is this won't only apply to first. It applies, they specifically say that it applies to a first priority mortgage, deed of trust, as well as any junior lien holders.
Yeah.
So that's really important because most of the time we're not able to get waivers of deficiencies from second lien holders. At least now we know that if you could get a waiver from the first, get the short sale to go through, that second lien holder will only have 6 months to file an action against you.
After a short sale.
Correct.
Even after a foreclosure by a, and I guess this is jumping topics, but I think it's in the new legislation, even after a foreclosure by a first lien holder,
correct,
like a first mortgage, do the second and third and whatever junior lien holders
yes,
still have now only 6 months rather than the 6-year contractual statute of limitations?
Yes, and that is a very, very big change, I think, because anyone who's going into a foreclosure scenario or a short sale scenario, that timeline for pursuit is really indicative of the decision that they ultimately make. And I think when this law goes into effect, well, actually, these provisions of the law have already gone into effect as of July 1st. So any foreclosure sale that happens after July 1st and any short sale transaction that closes after July 1st, regardless of your first position, second position, you have 6 months to start a deficiency. And after 6 months, your statute of limitations are up.
So Mr. Lender is SOL.
Literally.
After 6 months from a short sale, after
right,
6 months from a foreclosure by a first, including the first, which is the way the law was before this, but now all lenders really on real property, after a foreclosure, after a sale in lieu of foreclosure, short sale, they got 6 months to come after a deficiency But if there's a short sale, you still want to try to negotiate with the lender
Sure.
to get deficiency waiver.
Absolutely.
So that the borrower doesn't have to worry, the homeowner doesn't have to worry about getting hit.
Right. I think that where this changes for a lot of my clients that I've been talking to about how they're making these choices is if they couldn't get a deficiency waiver, they wouldn't close on the short sale.
Yeah.
Because they didn't want to open themselves up to the 6 years. So now I think if they're not going to give you a deficiency waiver on the short sale, well, they're certainly not going to give you a waiver after the foreclosure action. And at least that way you're mitigating your losses.
Yeah.
Because the short sale value of the home is going to greatly reduce that deficiency balance, because fair market value, their houses go at 85% of fair market value usually at a foreclosure auction. So,
and do you think they go at fair market, typically, or close to fair market value?
Yeah, and sometimes
in a
more.
short sale?
Sometimes more, because they get into bidding wars. So,
a little competition.
Yeah, from the information I've received from different realtors that I keep up with that do short sales, a majority of them are saying that there is still an element of bidding wars that's happening on short sales.
Yeah.
It depends on the uniqueness of the property. I mean, obviously, tract homes and square footage is pretty much going to be a predominant factor. But when you talk about houses that are in unique areas or have unique features, you do see them go for a little bit more than fair market value. Obviously, still very deficient and short.
We have a question.
Okay, a question.
What is a deficiency waiver? Kirk has asked, what is a deficiency waiver? So, go ahead, take that, Tara.
Deficiency waiver is when the lender agrees in the short sale approval letter that they will not seek a deficiency judgment against you. A waiver of deficiency usually occurs when either the lender has already received permission from whoever the investor or the owner is, that they're allowed to waive deficiency as long as there's a true hardship from the person who's seeking the short sale approval. Most of the time, to get a deficiency waiver, though, if you're talking about if there's private mortgage insurance on the property, or if it's FHA, VA, etc., there isn't a deficiency waiver per se, because there are indemnity clauses and subrogation rights and other things that go along with that insurance where they're not able to do it.
I think one thing that probably Kirk wants to know, or may want to know as well, is a deficiency is the difference between how much is owed on a loan and how much is recovered from the sale of a property, whether a foreclosure sale or a short sale. That's why they call it a short sale, because the lender has agreed to take short of what the lender is actually owed on the loan. And so the lender's going to say, well, I'm getting a short pay, or paid off short of what I'm owed, so I want a deficiency. I want the difference between what I'm owed and how much I'm going to get in the short sale. And so what you negotiate for in the short sale is to get the lender to say, no, I will let go of my deficiency rights and I won't come after that. I will waive the deficiency. And I think the short sale and a deed in lieu of foreclosure are typically the only context in which you're going to get a lender to say, let's waive deficiency, or we'll agree to waive deficiency. And sometimes they want some kind of compensation or consideration in order to waive a deficiency.
Right.
But that's a whole new set of circumstances. Each deal is different. Each short sale is different. Each lender, each borrower bring to the table a different set of circumstances that are going to dictate whether or not you're going to get a deficiency waiver. But that's the goal. I mean, there's really a lot of negotiating that can happen, but you really need to sit tight and fight for the waiver of deficiency in order to make a short sale really worthwhile for our borrowers. And that's I think that's our goal and our aim, is to make it worthwhile for people we represent in short sales.
Right. And the other important thing is, one of the reasons we always try to qualify anyone for a HAFA, which is the Making Homes Affordable. It's the alternatives to foreclosure. One of the reasons we strive to get that to anyone qualified into HAFA is it's a built-in deficiency waiver, as well as move-out costs that are provided for within a HAFA short sale. So a lot of times clients ask, why are you getting all these documents and information to send in for what's called the HAMP program, which is a loan modification. It's not because we want to get the loan modified, but one of the precursors in determining what your eligibility is, you have to apply for HAMP, get approved for HAMP, and then ask to go into the HAFA program in order to do the short sale. So
what type of loans?
Any loan that is owned by Fannie, Freddie, that is usually your conventional loans, your 80/20s, any of those types of loans. The only loans that are not eligible for HAFA are going to be servicers that don't participate in HAMP, which at this point there's very, very few that don't participate. There's over 100 that are listed on a Making Homes Affordable website. So there's hardly any servicers out there that don't participate. They may still tell you that, but you're probably talking to someone that doesn't know that they do. The other thing is FHA and VA. FHA and VA don't participate in HAFA program, but according to the HUD mortgage letter of 2008, if you participate in good faith for pre-foreclosure and you're qualified for it, they will not pursue you for a deficiency unless they suspect fraud. So an FHA pre-foreclosure sale, as a matter of policy, you're not going to be pursued for deficiency.
I thought of another situation, interestingly, where a lender could waive deficiency, maybe unbeknownst to the lender, or maybe unwittingly. I was looking at for a client, I was looking at a repo of the sale of a home that's owned by a bank, and that bank was selling this home well under the amount of money that it had loaned on that home. Now, of course, as the market dictates, but I went and looked at the public record and the deed, which was the trustee's deed, whereby the lender got the property back at the foreclosure sale, and the lender bid the entire amount of the indebtedness. So this house was on the market for $58,000, and the lender, which doesn't really matter for this analysis, but the lender had loaned $225,000 on this property, and that's how much they were owed at the time of the foreclosure sale. So they went to the foreclosure sale and they bid the entire amount they were due at the foreclosure sale. And by doing that, per statute, under NRS Chapter 40, they have waived their right to pursue any deficiency, because basically what they're saying is, hey, we got paid, even though they were the bidder, they credit bid on the entire amount they were owed. We got paid value, we got paid the entire amount of our indebtedness, and so they cannot pursue a deficiency against the borrower on that house.
Right, and that kind of brings us into the next big change, is what is this indebtedness, and what is the deficiency balance that they're allowed to go after. And I think that ties into what you're talking about in the legislature when they were reviewing this bill, and some of the dialogue that happened in the floor with regards to debate was, it's not fair that the lender will foreclose on the property, file a deficiency judgment for that difference in the balance, and then cash in on an insurance policy or two, that they end up double dipping and triple dipping a lot of times on these cases. And so the legislator has specifically addressed this issue, because now in Chapter 40, with regards to what the recovery rights are, they are limiting recovery of a creditor who acquired the right to obtain payment for the obligation to what they actually, to the consideration paid. So when we have these homes that have been bought and sold at a discount, the loans have been bought and sold at a discount on the securitized market, they now can't come in and say the full value of the note. They have to start where they paid consideration and go from that point.
And this is starting from loans purchased when?
It doesn't matter, because the basis of the deficiency judgment is how this law kicks in. So even if